It usually felt like entering a minefield during the annual Wong family reunion, but this year the explosions would be. I'm Jordan, and I was running late again, but I didn't realize it yet. My parents' suburban driveway was already lined with high-end vehicles, including Oakley's gleaming white Tesla. The best location beside the door. Of course, Jordan, you made it, Mom hurried forward as I walked into her silk gown, wishing me a sincere grin, but with a hint of that old concern. Oakley has been inquiring about your whereabouts. I'm willing to wager that she has been smoothing. Traffic was awful down my simple blue sundress, Mom. I apologize for being late. Why isn't she late for Oakley's? Like a well-aimed arrow, my sister's speech swept across the room as she slid over champagne and looked at Every. I suppose that's what happens when you take the bus, but I bit the accomplished real estate agent wearing her expensive clothes. The hospital parking is costly, but I forced a smile as I drove. There are benefits to being a nurse, and yes, you're still doing that nursing thing at Oakley's. Brian and I recently closed on our 4th investment home this year, and Brian waved his immaculately manicured palm dismissively. Before I could reply, Father, you need truly consider your future, sister. Showed up, my love, to inform everyone about the new development deal. My cousin Jeremy witnessed her commanding the attention of the room, a skill she had honed since she was a young child. Everyone smiled sympathetically at me as Oakley clinked her glass across the room. The room was quiet when I made my announcement, so I took a glass of wine from a passing tray. Brian and I are looking at the most incredible vacation home in the world, and we already know that this won't work out. She raved about how ideal the Hamptons are, with 6 private beaches. She paused dramatically in the bedroom's infinity pool, but obviously not everyone can. Jordan, didn't you mention that you were having financial difficulties? The room was silent, and I froze. I didn't say that I succeeded, but I had a wine glass halfway to my lips. Come on, Oakley. When I stopped by your mailbox last month, I noticed those collection notifications. There's no shame in. Heat rose up my neck as I acknowledged that you're having difficulties and that we can't all succeed. Family members moved uneasily, my mother's expression dropped, and my father turned his head away from. Oakley, I responded softly, I'm doing okay, love. You live in a little. Her voice was brimming with phony concern. It's okay to admit you need help, she said, so take the bus and your apartment. Perhaps we shouldn't really, Oak, she added, as her husband, Brian, laughed uneasily. Being the pragmatic one, I've noticed that certain people aren't cut out for greater things. Snapped, but not in a strikingly obvious manner. Rather, it was like a soft click. I grinned and took a sip of wine as I heard a lock turn and a plan come together. And remained silent, Jordan. My mother worried about my. Oakley was correct, and I finally said in a calm voice that some people aren't supposed to hear. My sister's smile wavered. They're made for more intelligent things. Excuse me a little, I said, taking out my phone as it began to buzz. Emergency. I noticed the man's message as soon as I went into the back porch. Set the documents are signed. I glanced at my family through the window at Oakley presiding over my parents' happy daughter in front of the family members who had witnessed this dynamic. My phone buzzed once more after years of playout, and this time it was my real estate agent congratulating me. I grinned when I remembered Oakley's expression when she had revealed her intentions for the Hampton house. She was unaware that I had been surreptitiously following her social media updates about it for months, and she was unaware that I had been constructing my. While she showed off her wealth gradually and cleverly, she had no idea that her ideal holiday home had just been bought by her troubled younger sister. I swiftly texted back. Perfect. Don't tell anyone about the transaction just yet. The celebration went on inside, with discussion and laughter resonating. The windows, enjoying the calm before the storm I was about to face for a little while longer on the porch. Sometimes the best retaliation is delivered with perfection rather than cold. As we sat in our chairs, the guy commented, "Timing, you're really crazy," stirring his coffee. Regular spot in the hospital cafeteria, like truly crazy, and I love it. I was still feeling the high from my secret 3 days after the family reunion. I had to pay off the Hamptons mansion eventually after working night hours and living below my means for 7 years. Petty moved forward and smiled, telling me, next level. I showed him the listing photographs, the 6 bedrooms, and the exclusive beach access on my phone. Oakley would not stop talking about the same infinity pool on Instagram, writing about the same thing for months, and I looked over more pictures from 4 years ago, when I first began taking on additional shifts. During Christmas dinner, Oakley explained to everyone that nursing was a fallback option for those who couldn't make it through medical school. I nodded, and that's when I really started to invest every bonus and extra shift. I met with her while she was posting about her fancy handbags, and she immediately went into my portfolio. Financial advisors, and no one understood why they would. It was ideal because Oakley made sure that everyone perceived me as the little sister who was struggling. Cover, I got a text on my phone from Jeremy Oak regarding the house again. When I entered Instagram after seeing this, Oakley was posing in front of the house. Dreams do come true, according to what she must have seen when reading the caption. I'm eager to turn this paradise into our own. Blessed Isra luxury real estate investor. She didn't know the sales agent was keeping quiet at my instruction, and she almost choked on his coffee. Believes she understands Jordan. A piercing voice interrupted our discussion. Dr. Martinez rushed over, saying, "We need all hands." A car pileup was approaching, so I grabbed. I wouldn't miss tonight's meal if I brought my coffee back to reality. The next 12 hours were a haze of trauma patients, surgical assistants, and more than Netflix. I was worn out by the time I arrived at the guy's place, but he handed me the paperwork and said, "Your timing is amazing." A glass of wine while I fell back on his couch and noticed what had arrived in the mail. Gave me a letter from a development business wanting to purchase my new property for an amount that was. The person said that they were creating a resort complex, which was far more than I had paid. They've been attempting to purchase real estate there, and when I looked at the figure, I realized it would quadruple my investment. You're not thinking about it right away, are you? Did you read my face? This has nothing to do with money. I put the letter down, and you weren't present for my. I assumed your family attended the nursing ceremony and graduation. They did. Oakley arrived late, listened to my speech, and then chatted about her new real estate license throughout the entire supper. Remarked, "That's cute, but let's talk about real," when I revealed that I had graduated first in my class. Your father approached Oakley for advice on investments, and your mother winced. I sipped my wine slowly, hoping that everyone would get along. Oakley has always shone brightly in my life, but I no longer fade into the background. I received a notification on my phone that Oakley had sent a message in the family group chat. Family meal at my house this weekend to celebrate the big news that's coming up. Believes she's grabbing the home guy's attention, as he reads over my shoulder. I provided him my banking information. App where years of meticulous investment and saving have created an unexpectedly strong. Yet, no one ever inquired about how I managed to support myself in the city on a nurse's wage. They assumed I was struggling because that's precisely what Oakley instructed them to believe, so I sent the information forward. The best part is that I learnt everything there is to know about real estate investing from the company's letter to my email. Every tactic and market trend she taught me, from hearing her boast about it at family get-togethers. The guy's phone buzzed, and he laughed, knowing that he could beat her at her own game. I retrieved the property documents on my computer to see if you would be attending Oakley's dinner. Phone, by Friday, the closing documents should be completed in time for her. Announcement right on schedule, and I agreed, picturing Oakley's expression when she saw her ideal home. Just as my victory lap was about to begin, I received another text, this time from my mother Oakley, saying, "Please join us on Saturday, sweetie. Families should stay together." As I typed my reply, I grinned and said, "Don't worry, Mom. I won't miss this for the world." Saturday came with the weight of expectation. I arrived at Oakley's McMansion at precisely the right moment, as Jeremy was exiting his vehicle. Said, "You're ready for whatever this is more ready for," as you fell into step next to me. Inside Oakley's house was a shrine to her, so I muttered, clutching my purse with its hidden envelope. Supposed triumph for the designer of all chrome and white surfaces. The walls were covered with carefully chosen family photos that showcased her best features. Jordan Bryan welcomed me with his. Oaks is in the kitchen, cooking as usual. She has been cooking all day. As we were passing past, Jeremy muttered, "She orders in and transfers it to her own dishes." I replied, "Always has." There was a lot of activity in the kitchen as Oakley stood at the island, organizing the contents of takeaway cartons onto serving. Platters from a high-end catering service that my mother was helping empty were shoddily concealed in the. Oakley's smile was dazzling, but it didn't reach her eyes. I was trash Jordan. I said, "I can't wait to hear the amazing news," and I accepted a. "Brian's glass of wine is life-altering. You'll adore it," she said as she arranged a tray. of what I identified as the local bistro specialty appetizers like some folks I believe in expanding, and approached my mother. Shot me an apologetic glance. The doorbell rang again. When my father showed up with the man I had asked for moral support, Oakley's eyebrows went up a little. She questioned, her tone brimming with contempt, "Are you still hanging out with hospital staff?" I answered quietly, looking toward the hidden takeout containers. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, "Brian called everyone to the dining room before we eat," Oakley announced. Standing at the head of the table, "I have great news to offer." She clutched Brian's. "As you are aware, we have been viewing the most stunning Hamptons home." I felt a man grasp my knee. Beneath the table, and following some quite private discussions, she went on to say that we are overjoyed to reveal that Brian really interrupted. Check his phone frowningly, "Honey, our agency just sent me an email, but not right now," as I was saying, "Sweetheart." The silence that ensued after the house was sold to someone else was. Oakley's voice was so sharp that it was impossible to check again, but it's sold too. Oakley's face flushed red. A few days ago when the agent stated that the new owner wanted to stay anonymous for the time being, but we hadn't. We never made an offer, but we agreed to announce that we had a viewing. They said they would hold it for us, so I sipped my wine slowly while I watched my father said, obviously trying, "My sister's flawless facade cracks well. There will be other properties, my love," to save the moment. Oakley slammed her hand on. "I've already mentioned that the table that was causing the plates to rattle was our home." She stopped, observing my composed demeanor. "Why aren't you more agitated, everyone? Why should I be upset about this?" "Because you're expected to." Jeremy choked on his Oak, "So you should be happy for me and jealous." Brian whispered, "Perhaps we should take a moment." No, this was meant to be flawless. I was going to show everyone her meticulously planned image disintegrating, revealing to everyone what I requested, my voice steady, and my level of success. I'm amazed at how much better she was able to catch herself, but not before our parents traded. Anxious eyes. "Better than who?" Oakley. She didn't answer, but her glare said everything. "Dinner's getting cold," my mother interjected weakly. "You know what's intriguing?" I remarked, reaching for my handbag. "Success isn't always about who shouts the loudest." "What's that meant to signify?" "It implies." I pulled out my phone, pulling up the property photographs. "Occasionally, the quiet ones surprise you," Jordan man cautioned softly, but I was done being quiet. "Remember when you told everyone I was probably going bankrupt?" I slipped my phone across the table. "Funny thing about that," Oakley grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the familiar photos of her dream house with my name on the deed. "This is a joke," she whispered. "The closing papers arrived yesterday," I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. "Would you like to see them?" The room burst in commotion. Brian stared at me in shock. My father was demanding explanations, and my mother put her head in her hands, but all I could. When Oakley discovered her struggling younger sister had defeated her at her own game, this is the expression on her face. "How did she do it?" I got up and smoothed my clothing. "Perhaps we should discuss about true achievements." "This isn't feasible," Oakley kept repeating, turning through the closing papers with trembling hands. "You can't afford this. You're a nurse who knows how to invest," I retorted. "Remember all those family dinners where you discussed real estate and market trends? Values?" Brian examined the paperwork over Oakley's shoulder, making sure they were authentic. "Truly believed that." But my dad began and then stopped, staring at me as if he were. "Jordan, how long have you been preparing this? I laughed when I saw you for the first time. Isn't that what you always commended Oakley for doing to my sister's face when you saw an investment opportunity and seized it? You've changed from red to white. Did you do this to get even with me, or did you just guess? My mother begged you girls to do what you wanted to do because no one else could." I took another sip of wine and said, "Don't fight, we're not fighting, Mom." "Isn't it correct that Oakley?" Jeremy cleared his throat during a business conversation. Oakley insisted that we eat before everything gets cold, but we ignored him. I took out my phone once more to find out where you got the money. "Every time you made fun of my career, I took on an additional shift and opened my investment portfolio. When you boasted about your accomplishments, I made additional investments. Do you realize that the difference in night shifts adds up to more than 7 years? But the bus is coming to your apartment. I ride the bus because parking near the hospital is expensive, and the neighborhood has increased in value since I purchased it." Speaking up, "Jordan is one of the most successful people. It's known as being a sensible guy." Oakley said, "Enough. The paid nurse works in the trauma department and has been published in medical journals. Turned to Brian. Phone our lawyer. There has to be a way to contest this. Brian shifted. Uncomfortably. Oak, we never made an offer we have no legal standing to then make. This is our house. But I said in a low voice that it's my house. And I suppose you're having difficulties with it, because you never thought I could be competition. The room fell silent. Again my father was staring at his plate. My mother was close to tears and Jeremy was trying so hard not to smile. Competition. Oakley laughed, but it sounded hollow. This isn't about competition, this is about you attempting to steal my dream. Your dream. I stepped up, placing both hands on the table. Let's talk about dreams. Oakley, let's talk about my graduation ceremony where you showed up late and chatted through my speech, or the time I got promoted to head trauma nurse and you told everyone it was cute because I was playing doctor. I never. Or how about last month's reunion when you tried to embarrass me in front of our entire family? That's different. I was trying to help this guy. Interjected by generating accusations regarding her finances. Remain out of this. Oakley snapped. I clearly stated that he is family and that this is a family business. More encouraging than you ever were. Brian abruptly got up and said, we need to talk. What about the credit card statements I discovered that reveal the true cause? We were unable to make an offer on the house, and Oakley's face went pale. Brian said no now, and he turned to I apologized to everyone else. We needed a moment before they vanished into the kitchen, but as my mother motioned, their furious whispers carried back to the dining room. Actually, I said, gathering my things, a little vaguely at the meal, I should leave because tomorrow morning I have a meeting with contractors at my new home to talk about. Jordan, my dad remarked, renovations, in a gruff voice, and I paused, holding my purse. I apologize. We ought to have focused more on Dad's accomplishments in the fact that Oakley was merely discussing making something from the kitchen while I was working on something. I was going to repay the $60,000 in secret credit card debt, Rose said. When were you going to tell me that? My mother's hands raced to her mouth. I shot back. I believe the guy said, standing up, as Jeremy whistled softly. The sounds of Oakley and Brian's quarrel followed us into the night as we made our way to our automobiles. We were swept up by Jeremy in what he claimed was the finest. It's not over, I responded, looking at the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. What do you mean? I smiled. This was only the beginning. Back at the house, taking out my keys, the contractors will be doing more than just remodeling tomorrow. They are conducting an evaluation for the eyes of that resort development firm person. You're not who I claim to have learnt from. The greatest, enlarged. The largest transactions occasionally take place in phases, and the following morning I stood on my new property's private beach. As contractors strolled around the resort development company's perimeter, they observed the waves coming in. With a tablet in hand, Agent Sarah stood next to me and stated, the location is ideal. Your property is the. She showed me the essential component we need to finish the resort complex in the bid. The amount on her tablet was 3 times what I had paid, and that was only the beginning. When the resort is constructed, we'll also give a lifelong membership, she continued, as my phone buzzed Oakley's name. I turned down the call when it showed on the screen for the 5th time that morning. Sarah asked if there was any family conflict, and I pointed to the house. Everything was okay. She went into detail regarding the resort complex. Therefore, I'd like to know more about your intentions for the site. Another call. Got through from Jimmy this time, and he advised you to check Instagram. When I responded that Oakley was having a breakdown, I opened the app that Oakley had. Shared a string of anecdotes, each more insane than the one before it, the most recent of which featured her sobbing in her car. Family betrayal is. I'm shocked that my own sister would harm me in this way. M. Wong. Sarah. Before she could respond, she apologized and waited expectantly. What were you saying about the beachside access? I whispered as Oakley, oh no, as the familiar Tesla roared up the private drive. Designer sunglasses appeared, concealing what I thought were swollen eyes. We must. As she marched across the dunes, shouting, Sarah arched an eyebrow, asking if I should. Please wait, I'm in business. I turned to face my sister, Oakley. She laughed hysterically during a business meeting. Is that what you call? The contractors stopped their work to see the scene, devastating your family. Actually, your sense of superiority is the only thing being destroyed, I said. Now, if you'll pardon us, Brian is leaving me, and it stopped me cold. Discovered that she had deceived us about our assets, the credit card, the shopping, and everything else. He is at his brother's place, wearing sunglasses that show off his mascara-streaked face. Sarah cleared her throat. You're happy now. I can come back another time, I murmured. Oakley is firmly departing, so you can't just say, I can. This is my private property, and you are intruding on it. Property, pointing furiously at the house that was meant to belong to me. Fantasy home, my ideal existence. I moved closer to you, you mean the one you. The one where you have to push everyone else down to feel it was based on credit cards and falsehoods. I can't recall my first apartment, Superior. You told everyone I lived in a risky area as I couldn't afford a better one, which is currently the most active real estate market in Jordan, or when I was promoted for the first time. You mentioned that nursing was a dead-end job, and guess what? You were using all of your credit cards to stay afloat. Sarah's tablet pinging when I was investing my deadened money, she looked. Miss Wong, the board recently accepted a greater offer from Oakley's. The tablet caught my attention, and I said, it's none of your business, but Oakley had already grabbed the iPad, and when she read a resort complex, her face turned pale. Perhaps I'll keep it and rent it out, or perhaps I'll just let you sell it to developers. The point is that it's my choice. You can't, I can, and you know it. The nicest part is that I returned the tablet because you taught me all there is to know about real estate. She was crying while I listened and took notes on all of your boasts and brags about your investments. I'm your sister, yes, and I've seen you thrive for years while you ensured that everyone's seen my failure, and now you can witness my triumph, Miss Wong. Sarah pointed to. I turned to leave when the contractors asked for your opinion on the designs for the house's renovation. The irony, Oakley, is that if you had ever cared to be a sister rather than a rival, we could. Having accomplished incredible things together, she muttered, don't do this, security. I nodded to the property guards who were already on their way and said, I'll accompany you out. Don't come back unless you're invited. I heard her say, Mom and Dad will never forgive, as I was leaving. I may not have gone back in time for this, but for the first time in I forgive myself for allowing you to make me feel inferior. Her reply was muffled by the sound of the waves as I approached my house with Sarah and the contractors, and I could hear the guards behind me. Sometimes karma needs a little assistance, so she firmly but gently escorts Oakley back to her car. I believed that sometimes the finest form of retaliation is just to achieve on your own terms. Your mother is referred to as a 6x guy, remarked, Oakley's moved, while placing a coffee in front of me in the hospital break room. A week had gone by since the altercation at the beach home, and I'd been going above and beyond to get back in with your folks. Shifts to stay away from the family drama, but it was getting to me. My dad left a voicemail, so I replied, checking. My phone says something about becoming the greater person and repairing the family. Before I could answer, I received a text from Brian asking if we could meet. Are you going to give him a call back? It's important for you to know that the new guy read over my shoulder. I typed back coffee shop across from the hospital 30 to see if you were going to do it. Minutes when I got there, Brian was already there, looking worn out and wrinkled. As I sat down, he replied, thanks for coming, Suit. I know things are messy. To put it simply, he took out a folder that you must view before. Any decisions you make regarding the property are contained in bank records, loan agreements, and credit card bills. Oakley's name appears on all of the documents, and Ryan added softly, she's underwater. The image she cultivated, the expensive automobiles, the fashionable clothes, all of it was debt. Relying on the house to repair everything so she could use it as. I discovered that he ran a hand through his hair as collateral for a loan to pay off the credit cards after that failed. She had been falsifying my signature on loan applications, and while I looked through the paperwork, my coffee became cold. Why are you showing me this when the numbers were astounding? She's not just damaging. She's involving your parents in it, and they're discussing getting a second mortgage to support her. Received a text from Jeremy saying that your parents' house will be hosting an emergency family gathering tonight. Oakley suggested that you. I gave Brian the message, and he remarked, she doesn't know I'm meeting you, but Jordan, watch out, she's desperate. That night, when I arrived at my parents' house, it was crowded once more, but this time Oakley sat on the couch in a heavy mood, looking smaller and less put together than normal. Jordan, my mother's makeup artist, hurried forward. Thank God you arrived. What's this? Regarding family, my father mentioned putting things right, and Oakley stood. Hands interlocked in front of her. I've been reflecting a lot on my errors and. Oakley, please let me finish. I've wounded people. She took a nervous breath. Made poor decisions, but I want to start over by sitting in the corner with you, Jordan. Jeremy I've been awful to you, Oakley, he said, catching my attention and shaking his head slightly. Persistently harsh, contemptuous, and competitive, and now, even though I'm paying for it now, my parents are also suffering. A second mortgage to pay off your bills. I cut the conversation short, and the room fell silent. How did Brian, my father, began telling me everything, so I turned to my parents. She informs you about the fraudulent loan applications and credit card maxes. My mother begged Jordan to please, saying she's attempting to make things right. No, she's attempting to use Oakley's facade to trick you into helping her again. You don't comprehend that I need assistance. What you require is repercussions. We're using the house as collateral, according to my father, but only till she gets back on her feet, Dad. No, you can't jeopardize all of your hard-earned money. The words suddenly reverberated. She's our daughter, so am I. Quiet, but you didn't mortgage your home when I first started out, and you didn't come to my aid when things were difficult. That's different. And my mother said, why? Since I didn't cry. Manipulate since I resolved my own issues. Oakley took the initiative. I laughed out loud when I offered to sell the seaside house to the developers. You want my house, which may save us all money, which is why we are having this family meeting. Your debts aren't ours, therefore I took them. My debts saved Mom and Dad's house. That house and my purse aren't for sale to the developers. And, not to correct your errors, Jordan, wait. My father called as I was about to go, so I took a step back. I learned from my mistakes the last time, and you know what the difference is between Oakley and me? She just expects everyone to. Otherwise, I would have had to take out my phone to stop their protestations in my car when the door closed behind me, and gave Sarah a call regarding the resort offer, saying I had decided 2 weeks ago. Later, I stood in the beach house's recently remodeled living room, looking from floor to ceiling at the sunset. The quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of cars pulling up the driveway, and the guy muttered, I'm adjusting. Jeremy asked as he handed me a drink of the snack plates we had prepared. I nodded and said, cheer to the end of this doorbell. I had invited everyone, members of the family, including parents, Oakley, Brian, cousins, and everyone else. They were unaware of the documents waiting to be signed on my desk for what they believed to be a welcoming party. My mom came in first, shielded by her purse. Oh, Jordan, I said, observing Oakley's face, beautiful. The renovations turned out perfectly. Brian hung back to avoid his wife's eyes as she surveyed the area that could have been hers. They were still dead. Jointly based on Jeremy's revisions, my father stated, clearing his. Hey, this is really something, isn't it? I motioned for everyone to take a seat. However, we must talk about something before we celebrate. Oakley's head broke, and you're selling to the developers. Not precisely. I took the folder from my desk. Established a trust in response to my mother's request for family. I began distributing copies of the house, trusting that it will be its primary value. Brian leaned closer to read the documents. I'm giving the trust, subject to certain restrictions. Unexpectedly, the house will be used as a family holiday home that can be. I observed their faces as they read, but we were all on a rotating schedule. Oakley's voice was modest at first, but there are rules. Without the unanimous approval of all trust members, the residence can never be sold or used as collateral for loans. Financial responsibility determines usage rights, which is what my father. In other words, anyone wishing to utilize the residence needs to show that they are financially stable and have no outstanding debts. No concealed credit cards or legal problems. Oakley's hands shook as she held the documents, and I went on. I've set up financial counseling services that are open to any family member in need and are entirely funded by the trust. My mother began crying. And I haven't completed the trust either. It's Jordan. Comprises a scholarship fund for our family's future generations, with a focus on nursing and medicine. The room fell hushed as I explained why Oakley had finally asked about education. Because we are family in spite of everything, and families should support one another rather than inflict one another pain. I looked her in the eyes, but they shouldn't let destructive behavior, according to the therapy services Brian provided, is your condition for. Oakley, isn't it? I nodded, finished the program, organized your finances, and everyone will be subject to the same restrictions, including Mom and Dad's mortgage, and you will have equal access to the house. Will continue to be their duty, but the trust comprises. My father took the initiative to make provisions for emergency family aid with stringent supervision and repayment terms. I need some air, Dad. Don't let me talk. He turned to face me. For years, I believed that he shook his head, but I was mistaken about you, Jordan. Oakley hadn't moved, and my mother was wiping her eyes, so we were both completely wrong. I'm still looking at the paperwork, and I don't deserve this. I concurred, but that's not the idea. Rather, it's about giving you and the rest of us an opportunity to improve the financial. When can I begin counseling? She responded softly, the first session is set for. She nodded, unable to speak, but I said one more thing, Monday if you want it. He took the paper eyes and pulled out a final page. Brian, this is for you. Expanding, which shows that the loan applications were falsified. What you do with it is. The crowd held its breath when Brian gazed at the document before tearing it in two at Oakley. He stated that everyone deserves a second chance, but only one Oakley exploded into. I raised my glass in tears and asked, who's ready for that housewarming party? Jeremy grabbed me aside as the tension subsided and people started mingling. You had this planned all along, didn't you? Everything about you, the counseling, and my family made me smile. Stroll around the room, my father outside on the porch, Oakley and Brian conversing, and my mother inspecting the kitchen. In a quiet area, I mentioned that sometimes the best retaliation isn't retaliation at all. Becoming the person they never imagined you to be, and occasionally a guy joins us. Through the windows, the sun has already set, leaving the beach in full view, revealing to them who you've been all along. Darkness, but the house was filled with fresh starts and second chances. The autumn breeze brought the. I was sitting on the balcony of the beach house, smelling coffee and salt, going over the trust's first quarterly financial reports. I needed assistance with those because I wanted the meeting to go off flawlessly. Without the designer, Oakley looked different, simpler, but somehow more real as she carried 2 mugs. Thank you for the coffee, facade. How was your counseling? She sat down for a nice, challenging session. Brian and I are discussing moving into a smaller space that is still within our means, which is fantastic. It's strange to be living within my means, but it's also liberating, she said, pointing to the documents, how the trust is going. Check it out for yourself. I sent her the reports you. She actually grinned a little when I checked her credit score, which had increased by 50 points to 62. As our recovery program progressed, the sliding door opened obsessively. In preparation for the first formal meeting, parents arrived first, then Jeremy and Guy. As the appointed record keeper for the trust, Jeremy asked as he set up his laptop. Really, my father said, I have something to say, before we began, and everyone turned. To examine him, he produced an envelope containing the bank's approval of our refinance. Application Jordan, you were correct. We won't be taking out the second mortgage. He looked at Oakley for all of us Oakley, and he couldn't continue to allow detrimental habits. Nodded while fighting back tears, and then my mother said, dragging her out. As they argued over who would get the house for Thanksgiving, let's talk about the holiday rotation schedule in their own folder. Observed Brian observing Oakley from a distance in the cautious hope that the counselor believes we might be. Oakley whispered softly, following my eyes, are we ready to move back in together? Adhere to our new spending plan, and I deleted my shopping after unsubscribing to any luxury marketing emails. So, she said quietly, and it turns out that I can be content without spending $400 on sunglasses. Okay, everyone, Jeremy named the scholarship as the first priority. Actually, I stopped because I had another item to do first. I took out my. The resort developers made another call and showed them the email I had received that morning. Offer the deck went sideways. Jordan was silent. My mother began, and your. As I read aloud, they leaned in on the final paragraph, not thinking about no. In the event of a purchase, we suggest a partnership in which the trust keeps ownership while we grow and oversee. Your beach house would be the crown jewel of the coastline, and its value would rise as the nearby properties area grows, which is fantastic, Brian stated his experience in real estate demonstrating that the trust receives all development benefits without losing. Oakley said quietly, you earned this, to which I retorted, control, it's your decision. My father cleared his throat, and I cast my vote based on our decision. Yes, they voted one by one when it came to the Future Generations Fund. I used to believe that success meant having everything I desired, but she paused before speaking to Oakley. She glanced at me and said, now I know it means being worthy of what you have. Jeremy typed quickly and unanimously, and I'll edit the trust documents. Pulling up a newspaper, the papers guy said, show them Jordan. I took the. A picture of my trauma team and I was included in the publication that opened to the healthcare section under medical innovation, demonstrating our updated emergency procedure, which has shortened the essential reaction time by 30%. My little sister Oakley replied, but this time there was no condescension in her voice, just pride. Not so little anymore, my father said at the meeting. Continuing, I saw my family truly, watch them, my parents learning to treat their daughters equally, Brian and Oakley establishing their marriage on honesty instead of appearances, Jeremy taking his duty as family mediator seriously. Last item, Jeremy said the trust's mission statement needs approval. I stood up. I have a recommendation. Everyone turn to listen. The Wong Family Trust exists not to create wealth but to create value, not to enable but to empower, not to divide but to uniting through financial responsibility, educational opportunities, and shared experiences, we develop a legacy of strength, wisdom, and genuine accomplishment. Oakley wiped her eyes. As the others nodded in agreement, I gazed out to the ocean, where the waves were gently rolling in. Static but constantly evolving, much like family itself, a man said when raising children. Coffee cup to real success for the family. I fixed up. Oakley gently applied my to both of them, since sometimes they are the same thing. As we clinked our mugs together, the sun rose above the clouds, warming the terrace. Sound blending with the waves in a flawless symphony of lessons learned, beginnings and finishes, bridges restored of redemption replaced retaliation.